creatives and entertainers, all hosted by a master of the game.
His Royal Blackness, KKD, the finest.
Catch Master of the Game on CTV. Oh yes, nuggets of inspiration and delightful treats for your enjoyment. Whether you love power, money, beauty or fame, there is so much to learn from Master of the Game. Only in the place to be. The coolest channel, CTV. Good morning and thank you for tuning in to CTV, Ghana's #1, and joining us on a very special program, Master of the Game, the program on which we bring you the movers, shakers, icons and legends of our beloved motherland, Ghana. The name is Dakwa, Kwesi Che Dakwa, and I am delighted to be united with a man that many describe first and foremost as a wise man. Next, they say he's a gentleman. Next, they say he's a royal. And then after that, they say, well, if you want to talk finance and if you want to talk turning businesses around, Nana Fredua Agyeman Pambuo is your go-to guy. And he is with me today, a royal, a distinguished gentleman, and a fantastic businessman. The Chief Executive Officer and founder of Investpro Ghana Limited, a great man who has served on as the premier lead of Asantehene Otumfuo, Osei Tutu's first ever educational fund. And today he's here with me to talk about how to earn a living and how to make a life, because too many people confuse these two things. You may be working hard to put money in the bank, but you may not be living well. So you can look at your family and have your children say, I'm proud of you, Dad or Mom. Welcome, Nana Fredua Agyeman Pambuo.
Such a pleasure, such an honor.
I'm so happy to have you today.
It is a privilege, Kwesi. It is indeed a privilege.
Now go to be here.
Kwesi, wadaru mebru.
With your kindness and indulgence, I would like to speak to my dear brother, fellow royal, in our local language, and then we will come back to the language that everybody learns in school in Ghana. Mimia, Akwaba.
Ye kronto.
Now what is saying?
Wadaruma, uhuna ye fedodo. Ghana mai, iwiasi dawasi Kwesi. Any at fair far would they share on mine any CTV anymore. Why are dear?
It does.
Boa basu Kwesi.
I want to offer Papa.
Wadaruma Kwesi na me bound chain dear, says me who ya kono kakra.
And Papa Crown says, Papa Crow.
Kwesi, Adum.
Na Emra. I take a course.
And okre.
Dina would that.
And okre.
In fear, pari.
Ediosun enum
75.
And okre.
Yenina bompire man. Yenina yesre patente man. Yenina yesre yansa man. Sumpa man. Na wasum Otumfuo me anso masum ne bi pa. Na emom ne educational trust na ofiti ase eye no. Am say wona udi kan yi wo say wo besia no. Kan wasem kakra kire.
Kwesi mi da ase. Na sa na mebie ma no akasa no. E wo se medi kan eda twe di ampo nyame ase. Na me sa da Otumfuo ase. E na am say onu nti e na me nti. Anope so hu me se me de egudi egu me nsa. Onu nti na enana metimi ahye de we num. Ti we ye ntasanko a ye egu me nsa. We ye kawa e kire se santehene nana ne me. E na ohwe me nso a ma yesika kokko nko a ti anope di Otumfuo na woda anura nyame adaroma nnananum samanfo amana tena wiase mfia bioso enum eho anigye emroso na anope me dia fa me ho dia betena ha santehene obu mi bebnre bi Osei so obu mu chia wako a ono de wadaye ya no agye so
Obu mu chia wako a ono de wadaye ya
no agye so.
So for those who do not understand, I'll do a little translation. If you will bend or courtesy to greet the one who deems themselves your servant, then they will lie prostrate to respond to you. Unyane
pepepe. Na enwanwa se ye kasa ni ya bebu ni amani bi. Enne ewiase nkrofo nso a omatene wiase acha omamre kra no ebia wachen ye de we hear Chinese for also be bisa almost so say na me put kakra or say if you don't push you don't get resisted me bibia enkoso nti we hear santehene na mamua sebe wonko na manhene ho omukrum na akohyehyɛ mrama wo mu obia tene manso na dehye na brempon obia tene krum nenso nintam kese wodidi agro dia bakonwa no wote sen sese bi ebru se bi ekronto ono aye mampon hene ya wo se ono atoso mienu se wo ye ne wofa se nsuta krampo a sante hene nintam de onfa nchew
esa konwa na nyawo dia
dia sa enti kwasi sante hene de ni monyam de wa hye me bia manabro so net education fund no di kan hyase owie no chichiri ni nyina te se opemso e de be share charity foundation nase the charity foundation no ehwe apomuden health ehwe addition education ehwe preservation of tradition and culture te de be ya mamre ne ya mane e betena wiase na de toso eye eno de ne yire Lady Julia eno so ya de bi da na komaso eye HIV ya emrebi ebisi ye maimu ana hayen pa nti saa nema enai no wonwene ni nyina na ode share the charity foundation ase na kwasi emra nananom so ne daye a oye charity foundation oto nani wanye nipa bia se bibru na koa mu akoa bobro eye me Fredua Agyeman Pambuo na ose woye me chairman ya me na medi kan emetena no yetena yenso yehihye bibia pepepe ema nanu na wotwe etwa mu yi ohene bahia hene ya sese ona ye chairman no efre me se ade na di mfie aduonunum etias edaso tiase afi kura de atre kura manabro so nti sese de ade na timi abetena nti sebe sante hene pa betu nani wamfa makofi anan wamfa ma na manhene wamfa ma sebe ex president Otumfuo mpo ya waye ne dehye ni a wohwe asante memu nyina no hwe manim kase wo kone kotena no no wose ani monyam ben ene genwe nti sante hene de
eni mo kese
sa
na ya baso body kese
sa to no de kwasi minso aye ne sese metwe me ho kura free no ho ema mframa mpo enya kwan fa mene ne ntemu a ekire se matom ne ntam obi a osumbo mame eye
mopia
that's a blue question
mopia
that's it.
And at this point, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we may revert to the language that you learned in primary school through secondary school. With me is a very distinguished gentleman, the founder and CEO of Investpro Limited. He is a corporate executive. He has served as the lead for Colgate-Palmolive in Africa and the Middle East. And in Ghana, he's the one who was selected by the president when one of our great banks was in distress. He was the one the president called upon to go in there and help restructure. So he was above the managing director, guiding and shining the path for the bank to stay and not fall apart. And there, in 2 years, the first man ever to make that bank pay dividends in 17 years. The bank's name was Merchant Bank. But I want to start with where he was born, who raised him, why he's the way he is.
Let's see, thank you. My father was the illustrious James Kwesi Menu, J.K. Menu of Ashford, an incredibly talented, wise, and wealthy man. I was born into wealth. My father was very privileged. He started with farms, then graduated to exporting foods, the first to Europe, and then he also had a hotel in the hospitality industry.
Which one is that?
It's still in Kumasi as we speak. It's called Ashford Court Hotel at Bantuma. We still receive dividends 25 years after his passing away from the hotel. He left a legacy. He built over 12 houses in Kumasi. and had 37 children with 17 different women. At that time, it
all
was
wives or concubines?
Mostly concubines, but this was a sign of the times. This was the culture. This was the tradition. Just like Europeans want us, the West, including the Europeans, would want us to accept homosexuality and LGBT as a way of life, so do we also practice polygamy as a way of life in our culture and tradition. Who is there to judge? But my dad was an amazing mentor. I will tell you a story. He came to visit me in New York. At that time, I was at Pace University, and we went to Saks Fifth Avenue. Traditionally, in his political suit, we entered the shop, and the first department was the tie department.
Neckties.
Neckties.
And bow ties.
Yes, bow
and
ties.
cravats.
Exactly. And then silk handkerchiefs.
Of course.
So, this Indian guy rushes to my father. Where are you from? Where are you from? My dad says, from Ghana. He says, oh, come over here. We have more ties on sale. So my dad looks at him and he says, he stands right by there. And happens to be that the first designer was Salvatore Ferragamo. So my dad goes, how much are these ties, man? The guy goes, these are very expensive. They're about almost $200 a piece, but I have some on sale I can go and show you. So my dad picks up one. He says, how many colors do you have of this? He says, you have 4 different colors. My dad says, okay, let me have all 4. So this guy now is beside himself. Do you want to have it gift wrapped? He's screaming. Obviously, he works on commission, so he's overly excited. So my dad calmly tells the guy, I don't need it packaged, just wrap it up. And then he pulls up a bundle of $100 bills, pays for it almost $800, and then hands the bag over to me. And after he says, Kwesi, let's go home. He didn't say anything about it. He left the ties with me. But the moral of the story was never let money become an obstacle to your desire or your dignity or whatever you aspire to be. In all things, make sure that you can manage with what you have and do not let money become an obstacle to your dignity. For me, that was the lesson learned.
Many years down the line, if you were accosted in such a manner by somebody in commission in a shop, will you purchase or will you leave him without a sale?
Now, knowing what I know of the attitude of the West or Caucasians, mostly, not all of them, towards the African, I think I would just walk away.
Leave him without a commission?
Yeah, I would have walked away.
And that was so beautifully captured in the movie featuring Richard Gere and Julia Roberts called Pretty Woman.
Yes.
Great story.
That is great story. Great movie.
Story.
My mother came from a very humble background, and I think the paradox is, on the one hand, my mother came from such a modest, poor background, and my dad, on the other hand, a very wealthy person. So I lived, growing up was a life of superlatives on both sides. My mother instilling the spirit of humility, instilling the spirit of knowing that money is not everything. One must also cultivate certain habits, certain characters that makes you a much dignified. Also instilling the concept of dignity, of knowing that wealth is important, of knowing that influence and networking and being able to rise above the pettiness of your life is also paramount.
You count yourself fortunate, don't you?
Extremely privileged.
Because you're reaching for the stars, but you're grounded, feet on solid ground. Exactly. Mom keeps your feet on the ground.
Exactly. So,
and if you do something that she thinks is a bit too uppity, she scolds you?
Beyond scolding.
What does she do?
Because my mother, I'm sure all my siblings, if they are watching, they will attest to this. If my mother is scolding you, anything and everything within her reach can be used as a weapon against you.
She's a weapon of mass destruction herself.
So My mom kept us grounded, made sure that we had a very good relationship with the help in the house. We always had a lot of extended family members staying with us, including other servants, for lack of a better word. But my mother made sure that none of them felt inferior, neither did the children also feel superior. I would bring in something just because it just came to my mind that President Rawlings once told me that...
President Rawlings?
Yes, President Rawlings.
I saw a few pictures of you and him when we're doing our research, and I was wondering, for somebody who gets along so well with President Otumfuo, to get along so well with President Rawlings, there has to be a story. Go ahead.
There is a story. But this is on President Rawlings. He once said that the only thing that causes conflict is when a society, a race, a country, or a group of people feel that whatever their beliefs are much more superior than the other. So be proud of being Asante. Be very proud of being Ga. Be proud of being Ewe. Be proud of being white. Be proud of being black. But do not push your Eweness or your Asanteness onto somebody from a different tribe because you feel superior.
For if you push, you'll get resistance.
Of course. So, exactly. So life is interlinked. And so one of the things that I realized growing up very early was my mother's deference towards the help, the extended family. She would, and whenever she cooked, she would make sure that the plates she used, whenever she assigned chores in the house, the chores she assigned did not favor the child or the visitor or the extended family member. So that very quickly you came to understand the dynamics of equality in the household. Those are some of the things that my mother structured and imbued in us growing up. And I believe that to this day, I count myself very fortunate to have been grounded in that environment of humility growing
Tell me
up.
about school and your relationships with friends, because school for me is a melting pot. Yes. I went to Presec Legon, and I recall the first time I heard somebody say I'm hungry, I was a bit confused. Because it's not a very pleasant thing to say, but they say if Papa no try, Pikin go suffer. It's a Nigerian proverb or adage. And let's say I never knew hunger nor thirst because it was always there. Mom ran a restaurant for over 38 years. There was always food in the house. There was always something to drink. In the worst case scenario, there was orange squash as well as water.
Let them eat cake.
So, so the first time I had somebody go, I'm hungry, I'm like, why is he saying he's hungry? He should go eat. But in school, you start learning that not everybody has it that easy. And in the same way, some people have it better than you. Tell me about school and what you learned from mixing with others.
I had a very unusual education at the secondary school level. Very unusual. I don't think more than 10 people in Ghana could claim this singular, distinction. I went to Form 1 when I was 11.
Same here.
I didn't even know what I was doing in secondary school. I don't even know why.
You were a baby.
I don't even know why I had to be sent to Opokuare. So I went there when some of my mates were in their teenage years, 16, 17, and the bullying, the discomfort, the waking up early in the morning at dawn to fetch water was a whole different world for me. So secondary school, Pokuare was like a new revelation. From 1 to 3, that's what I had to go through. But from 4, I'd become a rebel without a cause. Extremely notorious for rowdiness, everything to just be known and marketed. Education wasn't something that I was interested in at all. That after school I was going to work with my dad, like most of my elder siblings. So it was something that I had to just go through. So from 4, from 5, going to all the girls' schools, making sure that I didn't miss a single pop chain, whether in Cape Coast, whether in the central region, or coming to Accra for the weekends. I remember from 5, final year, about maybe 2 weeks to exams, we went to spend a whole weekend in Takoradi. I think there was this hotel at that time owned by Rebo, the mother. She had this famous club in Takoradi, and we went to spend a whole weekend there. So my O-levels was disastrous in 78.
So you were playing truants then?
Extremely.
Nobody at home knew about this?
Well, I think my dad wasn't very focused on looking at my report. Not that it was coming through, or maybe, but for whatever reason, I was just passing through. And I guess my dad also, he had his plans. So my O-levels were disastrous. Opokuari. And you know the rivalry between Opokuari and Prempeh. So I finished from 5 O-levels, and my dad goes, "Have you seen what you've done? Well, you're going to go back to school because I have different plans for you. You're going to go back to Prempeh College, and you're going to go to Form 4. Because imagine, one of the most notorious, rowdiest guys in the Ashanti region in terms of the secondary school system, Pokuare. And I wouldn't have minded if it had been taken to a school outside Ghana or outside Kumasi or any other school but Prempeh College. But he knew that that was what will hurt me and humiliate me the most and will wake me up. So, Kwesi, after my Form 5 O-levels, I went to Prempeh to do O-levels again, but not in Form 5. I had to go to Form 4. Now, I went to Prempeh, and naturally, my first year, I couldn't even come out of the dormitory. So I'm so embarrassed, I'm so ashamed. Anytime I hear somebody laughing, my first reaction is, oh my God, these guys are having a field day at my expense. Couldn't now even mingle with my friends at Opokuari because 1, I'm a traitor for going to Prempeh. 2, I've also humiliated the whole of Opokuari by also going to Prempeh. So I'm caught between these 2 places. So one day I had an eureka moment that, so are you also going to fail again here? So that's when I started studying for the first time ever in my life. And Kwesi, I didn't realize how brilliant I was. I never knew.
You had not applied yourself.
I had never studied in my life, and I realized that education came so easily. So Prempeh College had a grade 1, very impressive. Started studying to do my, because at that time I didn't want to go to school in Ghana anymore. So I did the SATs, reapplied myself, went to Pace University
The way you say I didn't want to go to school in Ghana anymore, is that an option everybody has?
Well, I had that option. So finished in 19 again, so I went back, finished 78, finished my O-levels again in 1980, told my dad, I'm done. And so he says, okay, you can look for a school in the US. So found Pace University, and by 1981, on my way to the US. But I think that experience at Prempeh College turned my life around. It humiliated me, it brought me down to earth, but it woke me up. And sometimes, Kwesi, your greatest misfortune, that which you think brought you to your lowest ebb, lies your redemption. I'm sure you would recount an experience or two where something happened to you that brought you to your lowest ebb. But during that period, your salvation, your redemption, your whole gravitas in life was uplifted also.
And you pivot.
And for you to become a better person. And that was what Prempeh did. Pukuari laid the foundation, Prempeh did the finishing and upliftment. And I'm very grateful to these great institutions for what they did.
Do you remember some of your friends from Pukuari and from Prempeh?
Oh, Pukuari, we still have Pukuari, we have numbers. So once you go to Pukuari, you are assigned a prison number for life. So my number at Pukuari was X149. I was in St. Paul's house. So all the X group, automatically, we are all part of a fraternity.
Some of the troublesome ones still in Ghana?
Well, most of them are outside.
Yeah. Remember a few names?
Yes, my childhood friend, my partner, who still remains my very good friend, is Frank Osei. His nickname was Disco. Everybody had a nickname. Disco. And within my dormitory, we had about 5 people where we were very notorious. That was Big Joe, Rocky Morgans. These are all their nicknames. Rocky Morgans, Elvis, Kofi Abua, Adamale.
Elvis has an Elvis Presley?
Elvis Presley.
Oh my God.
And then there was Ben Simmons. These were all my dorm mates, but we were notorious in terms of just hanging out every night and making sure that Kumasi's nightlife was never complete without us.
Do you remember some songs from back then?
That time Barry White was in, so let the music play.
Yeah.
Teddy Pendergrass, TKO. I also used to really like the Commodores still. And then Michael Jackson Off the Wall too was really big. This certainly was off the wall. So
and then
back case brass,
brass construction.
Brass construction. Average White Band and all those. So those were the days when one used to boogie. Of course, because you and I had an afro then. So notwithstanding that, Afro Sheen was very much in play, and everything was in vogue with the bell buttons. And
the bell buttons are coming back.
Really?
Yeah.
I think I would find it difficult to wear them now. And then the platforms, of course. Yeah, and then the skin tight shirts with the over like 100 black buttons or so. But we had the body to wear them, and the puff.
Yeah,
and the puff sleeves, the puff sleeves and those broad collars. So, we did our thing back in our day.
So you were a fashion guy back in school?
Very much so, very much so.
Who gave you the money for the fashion?
Well, it wasn't given, it was taken. At that time, you didn't really, you just had to find a way to take it. So it was all part of the construct, where I remember worst nightmares. So my friend who owned a pharmacy, I went to see him and I said, what kind of medication do you have that are very expensive? So he says, well, the most expensive medication we have is called tugamycin. So I said, could you write me a prescription so I can go and tell my dad that I'm not feeling well, and I went and this is what they gave me. So I take a prescription for tugamycin. This is a weekend, I'm making plans to go out. So I go and I'm not feeling well, and I went and they gave me this prescription. So my dad looks at it and Kwesi, this tells you how this guy was familiar with what I had presented in front of him. He looks at it and says, Toga? No, Kwesi, he didn't say tugamycin. He said Toga, meaning this guy knew what this medication was, because obviously maybe he may have had an association with it at a time in his past. So he goes, Toga? Kwesi, you will die, you would die. Is that where you've reached now? I said, well, Dad,
but you didn't know what it was.
I didn't know. So I said, Dad, I just said I had stomach pains and this is what they prescribed for me. He says, okay. But whatever it is that they've prescribed this for you, you better go and take it immediately. So he gave me the money, but he knew what it was meant for.
Yeah.
And I only found out later to my dismay that, oh my God, in my quest to make a bit of money on the side, this is what I had presented myself to be. So we took the money. You find a way to talk to your mom about slide rule that you need to buy almost like every week, and then you go and you come up with biology books. I never did biology, but you go in with one of these big books called an Abbott, huge book over like maybe 1,000 pages, and you take it to your mom and say, Mom, this is what they say we need to buy. So my mom had her shop. So Saturdays, I'll make sure I'll go by to let her know my story so that I have money. So we didn't make money, we took the money. But all these things at that time, this is 16, 17, 18. It taught you a bit about the street. It taught you about life, because life is about balance, Kwesi.
It taught you about lies, not life.
Well, it taught you about lies, but it also taught you about life, such that today, if my son or somebody comes to me and he's telling me, I know exactly what it is. So life is about balance. And even the good book says that be as pure as a dove, but be as cunning as the fox.
But it's got a wise as serpent as well. So you've got the pure as a dove, wise as serpent.
You have to, Percy. You have to be able to know when it's appropriate to wear a suit. You have to know when it's appropriate to wear a traditional cloth and wear it very well. You have to know when it is appropriate to speak English and speak it flawlessly, and when it's also appropriate to speak your local language without mixing it up with any foreign influence.
It's interesting. I went to visit my dad yesterday. He's 86. He's going to be 87 next month. And we're chatting, and we just talk about everything. And he says, when you guys were kids, sometimes you'd be pushing my Mercedes out of the house. And then I'm looking at you guys pushing the Mercedes. And I don't shout, because if I shout, you may scratch the car.
Exactly.
So all I do is just pray that wherever you're going, you come back safely. And I go to sleep. And I'm like,
really?
You see it?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. Kwesi.
And then
I think it was a sign. It was necessary, and I think it molded us, it shaped us, and it is all part of what has resulted in what we have become today. And it was necessary. It was very necessary, because we learned lessons, painful lessons, through this. And T.S. Eliot said, pain is necessary for growth. You will need to go through certain things in life that you are not very proud of in order to become the man that you should be. So there are certain things that we went through growing up with our parents, with life, that looking at things maybe from hindsight, we may not have done it if we could do it again, but we learned a lesson or two from that.
My special guest on Master of the Game, the show on which we bring you the movers, shakers, icons, and legends of our beloved motherland Ghana, is Fredua Agyeman Pambuo, a corporate executive and a business turnaround expert who is the founder and chief executive officer of Investpro, that does wealth management. We'll be right back after this. The discerning audience, the knowledgeable, the stylish, and the classy get together to enjoy Master of the Game. Master of the Game brings you distinguished personalities, leaders, achievers, captains of industry, innovators, masterful storytellers, creatives, and entertainers, all hosted by a Master of the Game.
His Royal Blackness, KKD,
the finest.
Catch Master of the Game on CTV. Oh yes, nuggets of inspiration and delightful treats for your enjoyment. Whether you love power, money, beauty, or fame, there is so much to learn from Master of the Game. Only in the place to be. The coolest channel, CTV.
Excellent furnishing in a real estate business is a great deal for survival. My struggles as a young estate developer were cut short when I discovered Fenart Ghana. With quality furniture made from the finest woods and amazing after-sale service, Fenart Ghana changed my story with every single home I built. It's a one-stop shop that serves the interests of clients with a variety of living room and dining sets, solid wood kitchen installations, wardrobes, doors, cabinets, beds, adolas, floor parquets, and many other award-winning product that will last a lifetime. With Furniture Ghana, all clients are offered the opportunity to customize furniture to their specifications, and the smile on their faces says it all. Thanks to Furniture, now your home can look beautiful with furniture that would last for generations. Visit Furniture Ghana today and share my story. Locate us at Yaniba Estate, Osu, Accra, or call 0303-966-085 or 055-278-4097. Think wood, think Furniture.
It's party time. I'm watching and saying, Ola Bawo. As I introduce to you Safari Zoom Flex live on Ghana's #1. With Zoom Flex, you can join the fun wherever you find yourself via Zoomer. Ella, just shake the body. God, it's Friday. Of course, time is 10 p.m. Sharp on Ghana's #1 with the man them DJ Last Week Official. We say, Ola Bawo.
CTV, Ghana's #1.
Apostle Francis Odro World Outreach Ministry, Akawa Hubium, the School of Ministry. I Yame and I'm Apostle Francis Odro. Yame Adon Wolfso, and now die a swan and Islam which I say. Yame to South Frau Amanyamia Juma. And I'm Pasa, oh, Yamisumu Dada, now soon Madam Kra, a wow so. And yet now when Yabeda Hama say, only the School of Ministry, Ebesiandi. And to Obacha who feed her. School of Ministry, Bamau, a boarding credibility, say, international certificate in ministry and international diploma in ministry.
Start the training now.
Hello, hardworking traders of Ghana. I've got terrific.
Master of the Game, only on CTV, Ghana's #1, with my special guest, Nana Fredua Agyeman Pambuo, a corporate executive with great knowledge in the business world at home and abroad. We found out about his upbringing and his boyhood years in Ghana. But then, after completing secondary school, he decided to go elsewhere to continue with his education. Where did you go?
So I went to New York. I went to Pace University. Pace was amazing because I finally got into this confidence, this groove, and I excelled at Pace. I really excelled. I mean, when you have a grade point average of 4.0, you're on the dean's list. And I was almost always on the dean's list because I finally realized that education, learning, knowledge, I had this appetite, and I felt I had something to prove to myself, that I wasn't this person who was stuck up in there, that I could really excel in education.
I'm going to hold you for a second. Friends who know you very well from your years in Kumasi say you had a great passion and love for literature, but you chose to go and study business.
Yes.
Was it something that Dad insisted you do?
Interesting. So I get to Pace University, and there's this. I have three people who I would say are my mentors. Ironically, they are all Voltarians, or my role models. And the first one was Professor John Aheto. He was an accounting professor at Pace University. So I entered my first year, and interesting, as you said, my passion was to do English or classics or literature. So I met him and we are talking. He says, what do you want to major in? And I told him what I wanted to major in. He says, son, for this color, I think it's going to be very difficult for you to be gainfully employed after your graduation. So find something that would at least put bread on the table. So Professor John Aheto is the one who made me switch from literature to accounting and finance. And he remained my mentor throughout my years at Pace University. Extremely positive mentor, very positive feedback. And he's still around. I went to visit him quite recently, and somebody who is a colossus. I wish Ghanaians would tap into the deep knowledge of some of our great men, but unfortunately, because of the poisoned partisan nature of our politics, unless you are really part of any political party, it's very difficult for you to enter the mainstream of governance or contributing your bit in this country, which is a tragedy. But I guess that is the nature of politics, and who are we aficionados to talk about that? So PACE was amazing. My final year, I ended up being the vice president of National Association of Black Accountants. At that time, it was a very influential advocacy group for black people who were into accounting and finance to enter the big 8 accounting firms. So around 1986, right now we have big 4 because of the merger of the big 8, right, but at that time it was 8. PricewaterhouseCoopers and Lybrand, Pete Morwick, Arthur Young, Tush Ross, Arthur Anderson, Pete Morwick, and Coopers and Lybrand. But now it's like PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers.
Because of mergers and
acquisitions, I think Arthur Young, now it's like Ernst & Winnie. At that time it was Ernst & Winnie and Arthur Young. Now it's Ernst & Young. But it was Ernst & Winnie at that time. So I started my case. So my final year, I'm the vice president of NABA, the acronym for National Association of Black Accountants. I'm the editor-in-chief of the NABA News and Views in New York State. So
you get to use your literature.
Absolutely. And this was also orchestrated by Professor Hito, thanks to him.
Fantastic.
Because he was the head of the accounting department. And then my final year, Kwesi, I had education has brought about, even though it was what started my greatest catastrophe, also ended up being the greatest upliftment in terms of my career and my corporate projection. So my final year, I get to host the big 8 accounting firms as the vice president and also the editor-in-chief. And Kwesi, I didn't even know my passion for public speaking. So I mount the platform and I'm speaking and I'm quoting from Booker T. Washington to Shakespeare to T.S. Eliot to everybody you can imagine. So we finished this program, and at that time, Arthur Anderson, this is my final year, my first semester.
Somebody's going to headhunt you, I think.
My final year, Kwesi, I still have 3 more semesters to go to complete. Arthur Anderson approaches me and says, would you want to come and work with us? And I said,
why did I think so?
My greatest honor. So Arthur Anderson sends a delegation to Pace University to say, we want to have a deal with you. This guy is an accounting major. He's coming to work for us for 1 year. If at the end of the year, because Arthur Anderson had 3 ways of grading you, above exception, meets expectation, and below expectation. If he meets expectation, you would give him a B grade for all his remaining grades. If he gets above, you give him an A grade. If he doesn't meet, if he's below expectation, then he will come back and do his final year again.
So you're using a work placement to get your academic credentials?
Precisely. Because he's going to be doing the same accounting audit. Exactly. And I'll come to this because when it comes to education in Ghana, that is what is lacking. The marriage between industry and education, that is what is sorely missing. And I wish that the Ministry of Education and the policymakers will be minded to ensure that this marriage is consummated. So, Kwesi, I went and spoke to Professor Hito that this is the situation I have. And he says, this is the chance of a lifetime. And I know you are going to excel. So, final year, never stepped in the classroom, went to work for Arthur Anderson. And the first project I'm thrown on, Kwesi. I don't know whether you remember Michael Milken. There was this company called Drexel Berham.
Yeah, I know that company.
Exactly. And Michael Milken was the CEO who had sold a lot of junk bonds to the US market. Initially, it was a venture capital company to raise easy money for startups. But then he got greedy, he became fraudulent, and he got out of hand. So the Securities and Exchange Commission in New York State decided to arrest him and do an audit of Drexel Berham. And I was thrown onto this project. Because it's the first 6 months, first 6 months of my life at Arthur Andersen. 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. Can you imagine, Kwesi? Sunday, Monday, Friday didn't mean anything. 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for 6 months. But I stayed in there. I persevered, I excelled. Then the final 6 months was quite exotic. Hong Kong, UK, Paris, a bit of South Africa, and then finally...
These are work trips.
Work trips, and then finally to Egypt. These are all audit clients that Arthur Andersen audited, and you get to go and do work in all these places.
And you get all the accoutrements housed in the hotels.
Absolutely, and living it up with an expense card, a Black American Express expense card. Enjoyed it, lived it up, and you were taught how to dress. You were taught how to fold your tie. You were told that cufflinks was a necessary accoutrement for a gentleman, and you were taught how to sit, how to cross your legs, and how to blend your colors. You were taught so much by a mentor who was a partner who always saw to your career projection. So, at the end of my first year in Arthur Andersen, because guess what I got?
Oh, you're above expectation.
Above expectation.
Of course.
So, my final year at Pace was phenomenal. I mean, I got to live it up, work hard, still be with my friends, enjoy myself, and work with Arthur Andersen and live the life. So that's how my career started.
So that first job really, well, do I call it a first job? Because every student in America would do jobs on the side.
I did my wine.
We never call those jobs.
No, those were not jobs. I did my dishwashing. For those who are listening, there was a restaurant in Brooklyn called La Polina. I did my dishwashing there. I did security. I did work. I work at a wine shop as a delivery boy. I did my bits and pieces and all that.
But that's what every student must
but
do.
You have to.
Even the ones who come from absolute wealth.
Oh yes, you have to.
Because it's part of the discipline.
You have to. So I did all that.
You learn and earn.
Exactly.
You don't just learn and then your parents bring you everything.
No. So those were things that you did, and throughout the summer you would also work.
But it's interesting to note this, that for somebody who loved literature, who had now been thrust into accounting, it is still your power of oratory that got you the attention that led you into this place of work. So we must never take any gift or talent for granted.
Absolutely.
And we must use them all.
Absolutely. You are absolutely right. Because that day that I found myself on the podium, as I felt possessed. And God in His mercy made me an instrument to deliver a message that was very powerful. So Arthur Andersen, I started Arthur Andersen. Now I'm traveling the world. I'm enjoying life. I've moved from Brooklyn to Manhattan. I've gotten myself a nice apartment. I'm living it up, enjoying it. And then Colgate-Palmolive becomes a client. Colgate at that time was implementing SAP, which was supposed to be a software that literally linked all your suppliers, your banks, your manufacturing bases together.
So the entire supply chain.
The entire supply chain, and made sure that everybody was networked such that if somebody goes to the shop and buys a box of Colgate toothpaste and swipes it through the POS system, it will go all the way through the supply chain network to inform Colgate Palmolive that start manufacturing another bottle or batch of toothpaste because so much were bought today. So you need to. So it also allowed companies not to hold excess inventory, excess stock, so that you don't tie up your investment or you don't pre-finance.
So you call that what, SAP?
SAP.
That's
it's a software.
Because I think that's what fast fashion is doing now.
Oh, wow.
All the fast fashion businesses, because taking up wholesale space costs money.
Exactly.
And especially if you have perishables, they may expire.
Exactly.
So you only make certain batch
just in time
when so much is gone.
So it's called just in time kind of production. And it links up. So literally, with the exception of making tea or coffee for you, SAP does everything literally and practically for you. So only time that you will need to pay attention is if there's an exception. Let's say your raw material supplier for a particular item cannot deliver on time and he sends you a notice, then you need to work outside the system to be able to get that.
So working for them as a client, what happens?
So Colgate, I've been thrust into Colgate. Colgate is, I'm working for Arthur Andersen, but for the next 4 years, repeatedly, I'm going to Colgate Palmolive subsidiaries all over Europe and America to ensure the implementation of SAP. But you know how you and I are. We are like candles. We cannot be hidden under a bucket, nor a bed.
Wherever you are.
So even though there's a partner, there's a manager, at the end of each project, I am the one who has to do the presentation to the board and the senior executives of Colgate Palmolive to tell them about what Arthur Andersen has done and what we think they need to tweak, what they need to do to enhance, to improve upon their model. Because SAP is not a one-size-fits-all. You need to tweak it to your particular industry also. So, and SAP does not allow itself to be tweaked. So you will need to bring in other software to isolate specific items within your supply chain to respond appropriately to your unique. You have to re-engineer it. Exactly. And that was what I enjoyed doing. Re-engineering along the lines of SAP, which was very unique. At that time, it was called business process re-engineering. And it was cutting edge technology. And it was unique.
Unless something comes up, yes,
at that time. Oh, well, at least the youth of the day, as they listen to us, will realize that you don't get to become a somebody. You don't get to achieve your dreams by just sitting back and doing 419 or doing galamsey or getting into politics or getting into anything that brings quick, fast, cheap money. There's something called knowledge. And to get that knowledge, Kwesi, you need to invest in education, your time, learning under people, observing, and also having that urge, that hunger.
I love the way you say learning under people, because whenever I sit with Sir Sam Jonah, I just shut up and listen.
Exactly.
Unless he asks me a question.
Exactly.
If he hasn't asked me a question, I just shut up and listen. And then sometimes you say, now, Otumfuo won't kasa. I said, me too. And recently I went and sat with Kwawansa.
Oh, wow. Amazing guy.
We sat for nearly 2 hours.
Oh, amazing guy.
And I just sat down and shut up and listened.
Amazing guy.
The wealth of knowledge.
Amazing guy. Amazing. I met him. We spent a weekend in Takoradi with Nanan Kobnan Ketia.
I sat with him also for nearly 2 hours in his
and
house.
Kwanzaa in Takoradi for a weekend, Kwesi. And it was phenomenal. Nanan Kobnan Ketia, another great paramount king, who I believe is in a whole different world. Great guy, great guy, great guy, great guy.
So really, here you are, helping a business through the company you serve. But there's a fly on the wall that tells me that Colgate Palmolive decided to steal you from the firm you were working for.
Yes.
True?
True. So 95, apartheid had been dismantled. Mandela had come in, and Colgate was one of the few companies that stayed in South Africa during the boycott of South Africa during the apartheid regime. So for Colgate, they needed to make amends because they had been exposed that they were part of the apartheid regime. They never left. And for Colgate, they found themselves in a bit of an uncomfortable situation. So they turned over looking for somebody who could head the operations of Colgate so that they could prove to the world that they have also changed with the times. So Colgate headhunted me and made me the regional director or vice president in charge of Africa and Middle East with 17 countries under my belt. Kwesi, I have never felt so elevated, so elated. It was such an honor, but it was a huge task.
How many brands did Colgate Palmolive have?
Colgate has the toothpaste, the soaps, the creams. Then they have other subsidiaries like hair care, Black Like Me.
That's right.
They also have their brands like T-shirts, golf balls, golf accoutrements.
So it was an extensive personal hygiene range of brands.
Yes. Oh yes.
And then other affiliate brands.
Exactly.
And all of them came under your care.
For Africa and Middle East. So South Africa was a major. So in these 17 countries, we had manufacturing plants that manufactured the Colgate products. Like in West Africa, you had Senegal, Ivory Coast, Cameroon, Nigeria. Northern Africa, you had Egypt, Tunisia, and then you had South Africa, Namibia, Botswana. You had the Middle East. At that time, because I remember about 1997 going to United Arab Emirates or Dubai, because it's such a tragedy. Going to Dubai in 1997 for the first time. Desert, marshland, nothing, just a few hotels spotted around the place. And to go to Dubai last year for Christmas to see the transformation. And it's a tragedy when I look at Africa and how we've become stuck in terms of our infrastructural development and our mindset of not knowing, having seen this, and somehow we just don't get it. I remember going to China. At that time, Colgate had an operation in Guangzhou. China hadn't opened up yet. This is around about 96. And so went to Hong Kong, took a hovercraft from Hong Kong to Guangzhou, where Colgate, it was like a free zones area. And China at that time was very interesting, Kwesi. Stayed at a hotel, came back, my suitcase, all my clothes had been unpacked. I mean, carrying an American passport at that time. All my clothes had been unpacked. And I was wondering, how does this work? Why would somebody open your suitcase, unpack your stuff, and arrange your things? But naturally, even though China was opening up, but still they were very suspicious and guarded with regards to foreigners coming into their country to do business.
So unpacked as though they were doing you a service, but essentially they are surveilling you.
Exactly. So Colgate, I lifted up. Then that's when my passion for wine expanded beyond measure.
I really want to come to the fact that you actually even went to go and study about wine.
Yes.
But there's something a bit more pressing that I'd like us to talk about.
Okay.
And it's your expertise in turning around a failing enterprise, a failing business. Is it the same expertise that people can use to turn around a country that's just desert land or marshland into something that the whole world now wants to come to when they want to play?
That's a very great question, Kwesi. I think that's what Arthur Andersen imbued in you. Arthur Andersen gave you the confidence and the skill such that you could practically, when it comes to business, you could practically tear everything down, break it down to its smallest pieces, and again, the business process re-engineering. So business process re-engineering, or turning a country around or turning a business around, works in this way. So A is what, under A, the column A, is what the company is. Everything that it is. Its assets, its operations, its workforce, its net profit, dividends that it pays.
So you look at the SWOT as well. Strengths, weaknesses,
everything that the company
threats,
is.
all that.
B, under column B, under the same line for company A, is what does best practice say? So ideally, Ghana got independence in 1957. So if you look at, let's say, similar countries, Singapore, Korea, and other countries, where are they? How many members of parliament do they have? What is their GDP growth? What is the strength of their currency to the dollar? If you are comparing Ghana to, let's say, these countries, how many manufacturing bases do they have? Manufacturing companies do they have? How many churches do they have? Healthcare, all those things. So you look, A is what you are, B is ideally what you should be. So now you subtract B from C, from B from A, to realize that, okay,
you're negative.
These are so you're going to be negative, but those are the things that you need to focus on. So ideally you should have 4 shoes because there are 4 seasons, but you have 1 shoe. So that means that when you subtract B, best practice, from A, what you are, that means that you are -3 shoes.
So ideally, maybe you should have 3,000 patients per doctor.
Exactly.
And then right now you're at 17,000.
Exactly.
But you choose to build a cathedral.
Exactly. Well, you choose to dig a pit. I think.
Well, we didn't even build a cathedral.
Well, yeah, I'm saying you choose to. Yeah, so ideally you choose to dig a pit. So
what the turnaround skill set that you have, or that you acquired, or that was instilled in you from your corporate work in accounts and finance, is the same thing that we need for turning around a country.
Absolutely.
But the leader must have a vision.
That is true. That is true. So there are rulers and there are leaders, and there's a big difference between the two.
When we come back, we'll come to rulers and leaders,
yes,
and then we'll go into the brass tacks of that turnaround enterprise that this gentleman, this royal, worked on when he was charged to go and oversee the managing director of his team at Merchant Bank to turn it from a failing company that had not paid dividends for years to one that paid dividends for the first time in 17 years after only 2 years of his stewardship. Right after this.
Excellent furnishing in a real estate business is a great deal for survival. My struggles as a young estate developer were cut short when I discovered Fernart Ghana. With quality furniture made from the finest woods and amazing after-sale service, Fernart Ghana changed my story with every single home I built. It's a one-stop shop that serves the interests of clients with a variety of living room and dining sets, solid wood kitchen installations, wardrobes, doors, cabinets, beds, pergolas, floor parquets, and many other wooden product that will last a lifetime. With Fernat Ghana, all clients are offered the opportunity to customize furniture to their specifications, and the smile on their faces says it all. Thanks to Fernat, now your home can look beautiful with furniture that would last for generations. Visit Fernat Ghana today and share my story. Locate us at Yaniba Estate, Osu, Accra, or call 0303-966-085 or 055-278-4097. Think wood, think Fernat.
We enter businesses to win. We enter businesses to make profits. If we can make profit, at least we must have a good public perception, and we must provide a service that brings value to our customers. But sometimes businesses fail. Businesses fail because of different conditions. It is unfortunate, however, when businesses fail because of decisions that people who are entrusted with the authority to lead those businesses make. What we're about to talk about is not something you can just point to one person for the failure. It's a complex issue with so many different moving parts. But Merchants Bank, a bank that was supposed to help service the merchants of Ghana, to ensure that we can bring goods and services into this country, as well as aid people to sell our goods and services elsewhere, was falling apart. Why?
Merchant Bank was, like you said, a very complex situation where there were different moving parts, whether to do with the personnel, the management, the delivery of services, the kind of products, the loss of a vision or a clear objective, because we no longer have merchants. So even
had they become just a retail bank?
They didn't know whether they were a retail bank, a corporate bank, an SME, or what they had to be, because they had sort of outlived. These were all banks that had been set up post-independence to serve emerging needs. But just like the Constitution, these are, businesses are also living entities. And with time, they need to go through a paradigm shift to be in tune with the exigencies of the present situation. And somehow Merchant Bank had lost that touch. So I was on the board of SNIT, and Merchant Bank had fallen into a crisis situation due to a situation that I'm not going to go into very deeply. So I was sent to Merchant Bank to assist in the rescue.
But you were given a very peculiar position because you were not a board member.
I was a board member.
You were a board member of the owner of Merchant Bank,
Right.
because who are the biggest owners in Merchant Bank at the time? SNIT. And SNIT is the people of Ghana.
Right.
And the head of SNIT is actually the president, because he's the appointing authority.
That is true.
And the president asked you
Yes.
to go and oversee Merchant
Right.
Bank,
So I went there as the executive supervising director.
which is above the managing
So there was the
director.
managing director, but I was supposed to have the whole bank and be able to reposition it, re-engineer it for it to be what it was meant to be. And the chairman of the board was Kwame Tete. And again, I mentioned Professor John Aheto. My second role model mentor is lawyer Kwame Tete. Kwame Tete is one of the finest, amazing human beings I ever met. And somebody who also became a close friend, who was extremely helpful in terms of direction and purpose, and understood what I wanted to do was Kofi Anda, who I had met at Merchant Bank and has remained a friend to this day. And there were others. But before I went to Merchant Bank, KK Sapon, Dr. KK Sapon, and
Who later went to Cocoa Board,
yes, and then Dr. Osei, who
served as a minister.
right. So the two of them were on the board of Merchant Bank, but they had to be let go. They had to let them go because of some issues that had happened at Merchant Bank, together with the managing director at Merchant Bank, a gentleman by
When the appointing authority has to let you go, does it border on criminality? Does it border on dislike? Does it border on you're no longer as useful as you used to be? What does
I
it
think
border
it could
on?
be one of those four. It could be a combination of all those four. I wasn't very privy to why, but they had to exit before I came in. And then when I got into the bank, I was, the first was a very welcoming board who really realized that they needed somebody, and Mrs. Villas.
Mrs. Villas,
yes,
who also served on the board of GIPC
Yes,
when I
so,
was there
exactly.
as Director of Public Affairs.
Amazing woman who gave me a lot of comfort.
Very
a lot
pleasant
of comfort,
woman.
extremely. So I got in, and I was welcomed by a board who understood the need of someone of my expertise and what I had come in to do. So they didn't feel threatened. They rather welcomed me because they needed a surgeon to come in and surgically
Excise the cancerous bits.
And
What exactly was the cancer?
I think the cancer was the credit delivery and the mode of evaluating credit, and also the exposure of non-performing loans, coupled with a staff that had lost their edge because there had been so many changes, political changes, tribal influences, issues within positions, and the whole grading system even of the HR.
So it was an environment without motivation?
Exactly. Staff were very demoralized, and things were not going the way the Merchant Bank had become decadent. It wasn't fresh. It wasn't expanding in terms of its IT platform, novelty in products and services, branch expansion. It wasn't opening new branches.
So now that you identified, or like we're writing our PhD thesis, you say, problem definition. Now that you got the defined problem, what was your strategy?
My strategy was first to bring the staff, management, and everybody on board. So the first thing I started was starting with Thanksgiving services, Sunday, just for us to all commune together, pray together, and uplift our spirits. And then looked at the whole staff remuneration and positions within. So a proper organizational structure that reflected best practice like what Stanchart and Barclays had, so that anybody at merchant
a certain
bank,
level is remunerated in a similar way for what you deliver, for your outcomes.
Exactly. So best practice in terms of people and their positions and their salaries, including their packages. And then training. Send people to the UK, to Ghana International Bank, for them to learn best practice in terms of, because Ghana International Bank, to their credit, had 0 non-performing assets. So all their loans somehow, because of their credit management, were being serviced. And the key in banking is your credit management. You can give a loan to everybody, but you must make sure that
recover them.
You're able to recover it and quantify the risk so that you're able to price it based on the interest rates properly. So
the greater the risk, the higher the APR?
Interest, exactly. And so staff now...
sorry. I mean, I said APR, the higher the annual premium rate.
Precisely. So now, staff now realize that they could be trained. We brought in an HR specialist to really spend time with every department to really look at staff motivation, staff training, hear people out, get their concerns so that we address it. So everybody felt like they brought something to the table and finally they could be heard.
What key performance indicators did the appointing authority set for you?
For me, it was to bring an insolvent bank back to life, because Merchant Bank was facing receivership.
So you
was literally bankrupt.
You were reviving a dying patient.
Dead patient, Kwesi.
Dead?
Yeah, literally dead. Literally dead.
You're not Jesus.
This was literally a company that couldn't meet the obligations of
So how did you do it in 2 years?
First, by the grace of God. Secondly, Otumfuo, to his credit, gave me a lot of mentorship. At that time, I was also the chairman of his foundation, so I was seeking a lot of counsel from him. And it was about fortitude and keeping myself focused.
Did Otumfuo tell you very nicely, Meba, so no be mwawa manonko? Did he tell you those words?
Well, you know, what is said with Otumfuo can never come outside.
But perhaps we all who have listened and sat at his feet know some of the things he says.
But Arthur Anderson, you know, I mean, so I had never worked in a bank. I had never ever worked in the bank, but it was using the skill set from business process re-engineering to realize that, and it transcends BPR.
How can you apply business process re-engineering to change the mindset of a state and also to change the outcomes of a state so that the people have a better quality of life?
Thank you, Kwesi. So we have the National Development
Planning Commission. And
this commission should be on the same level as the Council of State in terms of the gravitas, in terms of the voice.
If you ask me, I don't think we need a Council of State.
Well, that is a discussion for another day.
Because of what it says in the Constitution, there is no way my father is going to bequeath anything to me and say you can hire these people and pay them well and make sure they're very well looked after, because they are the ones who will give you the best advice. However, you are not obliged to take the advice, and then I decide to keep them. So that's why I have a bone of contention with the maintenance of a Council of State. I love the people there. They are brilliant people, great people. They give sound advice, but the appointing authority of this nation is not obliged to take the advice.
The intention for setting up the Council of State was and is still laudable. The challenge is the implementation. But like I said, that is a discussion for another day, which I hope will be.
We will have a 1-hour program on that.
Now, the National Development Planning Commission should be empowered to use BPR to develop, let's say...
BPI, let me state
right,
it for the benefit of everybody who's
this
listening.
business process reengineering, to be able to develop a policy or policies. For example, Ministry of Sports, Ministry of Health, just to make it simple. Best practice says you should have 10,000 patients per doctor. Best practice says you should have, for every 100,000 people in a community, they should have a teaching hospital.
Best practice says for 3 minutes of arrival at the OPD, you must get your triage done.
Right.
Let's say, so we want to achieve all this in the best practice.
So best practice says every region that has a total population of 100,000 must have a sports stadium. Best practice says that for every community that has more than 100,000 residents, they must have a standalone transformer to serve their electrical demands.
Fantastic.
So, and all this will feed into the national grid. All this will feed into the various ministries. All this will feed into the Ministry of Finance for budgets and also future projections. This is how America does it. This is how the West does it. This is how progressive nations do it, such that irrespective of the change of government, we know that we are building a railway line from Tema to Hamile to Garu. Whoever takes over knows that 10% of the taxes that we collect from the ports is allocated to the building of this railway line, just like Buankra.
Then I hate to come in here.
So, Kwesi, 1 second.
Okay.
I was one of the founding members of Ghana Shippers Council that came up with the concept of having an inland port at Buankra during President Kufuor's time. And Kwesi, I've served on the board of SNIT, Merchant Bank, Ghana Shippers Council, Ghana Employers Association, Ghana Supply Commission, Switchback Development, the project across from 37. I was the premier chairman. I've also served on the Mr. Yonkers University, Africa University College, his business college, which is named after Sesam Jonah. So I've served on these boards. So in terms of governance, I've served also on the board of Labadi Beach Hotel. So in terms of governance, I have a bit of an understanding as to how institutions and corporations ought to be run. And these learnings can be transformed or transported to the National Development Planning Committee to ensure that when it comes to policies, it must be enshrined such that whether there's a change from WPC to QPC or whichever political party comes into power, this line that will serve Tema, Hamile to Burkina, and Garu to Niger and maybe Chad to our landlord countries cannot be disturbed. And Buankra Kwesi would have been a game changer in terms of the reduction of road accidents, in terms of the maintenance of our highways, because if all these trucks are not plying from Tema after taking on goods to come all the way to Kumasi and then continue up north, but goods can be brought by rail to Buankra and thereafter
our roads will last longer.
Much longer. Fatalities will be reduced. So much. It's a game changer. And Buankra will become the new Tema, where you can develop a whole new metropolis out of the Ashanti region to become it will change, and it will also change the dynamics.
That what you're saying makes it very clear, crystal clear, that whilst we must have some people who are striving to help elect a political party into power, the skill sets required to run a place like the National Development Planning Commission and the skill set required to run some of our biggest and most profitable industries in this country have nothing to do with political affiliation.
No, you need technocrats to run institutions, and you need politicians to also serve on boards to ensure that the president's vision is being achieved. So clearly, every president, every political party have their vision and objectives, and those can be served on the board level. But even on the board level, you will still would need a good combination of technocrats to understand the financial implications, the economic development implications, and then the developmental implications of the decisions that are being taken by boards. Because they clearly, these are the powers that ensure procurement and contracts are executed. And if it is all done along political lines or party favors, then Kwesi forever will be condemned to this cycle of unending African mismanagement.
At the board level, you're all board members. As board members, you choose your chairman. The chairman is not an appointed person.
For the most part, he's appointed.
But if the chairman is appointed, and you've made my question shorter, and the chairman is not delivering as is expected of a person leading a board, what are the remaining members of the board to do?
In our environment, nothing. I mean, nothing. In our environment, nothing.
Why?
Because the board charter or mandate doesn't even address this very important question. So
this is pathetic.
It's almost like addressing an issue that is not mentioned in the Constitution. And the board chairman is an extremely powerful
because
person.
I have seen situations.
He's appointed by the president.
I have seen situations where monies that should help a company deliver its core mandate used for things that are not part of its core mandate.
Oh, yes.
So a company that should be making profit for the people of Ghana is failing, is losing money. And the board chairman is at post. And the CEO is at post. Why?
It is because I think President Rawlings, when he came in, he had a mandate, even though at that time it was a bit narrow, accountability. And the bedrock or the foundation of accountability is standards and KPIs. Here in Ghana, you know, the arrogance of power where you know that you can mismanage, you can steal, and you can literally scrape the bottom because there's no accountability.
I'll give you a good example.
There are no KPIs and
I want to bring you down to brass tacks. A good example. You've heard of the Signals Bureau problem.
Right.
How does somebody even get access to that kind of money?
KPIs, standards. So in any
what should happen to the entire board that was there?
In any functional organization? I mean, so let's bring it down to individuals. You are here, and at the end of the month, you don't receive your salary. Then you go to the accounting department. You find out that it has been sent into the
private account of somebody,
one of your assistants. But if you were here and you were also stealing so much such that your salary was meaningless to you because the amount of money you are stealing compared to your salary, that the difference is so vast, you may never uncover this until the day you leave this place, only to realize that you have zero remittances from this company because you've always been living.
You've always been stealing.
So the issue of KPIs, where people, you know, and this is something that should be mandated by the state interests, and I think it's SIGA now. I don't know what I think it's state interests. It used to be State Enterprises Commission, and now it's changed to SIGA, SIGA. That they should be mandated as the sort of the supervisory entity above all these organizations that have their CEOs and board members appointed by the state, such that these KPIs can be used as a measure. Because President Mahama, to his credit, recently spoke about that the era of these institutions failing us is over. Companies that belong to the state must bring equity to the table. And it's just a fact of life. We can't just have a situation where we rightfully reward party faithfuls. I understand that it happens even in the best of democracies. President Trump, to his credit, is a living testament to what I'm saying. So there's nothing wrong with rewarding party faithfuls to lucrative and promising positions. Be that as it may, there should be accountability and KPIs and standards to ensure that these people measure up to what they've been given to do.
I want your reaction to this video.
You did it?
Yeah.
No way, let me see, man.
Look at this.
Oh, shit, he did it. He did it. Zamir, you're the man, Zamir. What's your average? Let me see. That's his average right there, bro. You see that? He made it. He made it to the honorable. Okay, Zamir, go grab whatever you want.
Alright.
That's all you want?
Nah.
What does he want?
I want you to make this into Oreo milkshake, but instead of Oreo, make it into Hershey chocolates, cookies and cream.
Okay, I got you. So you want me to add cookies and cream Hershey's to it?
Yeah, and one more thing.
Okay.
A bacon, egg, and cheese.
I got you. Zamir, this is your drink, okay? And that's all you wanted?
Yeah.
And this is your food?
Yeah.
Here you go. Keep going, you heard?
Thank you.
That's what I'm talking about. I don't know if you guys remember him, but he made it.
Yep.
Wow.
Wow, Kwesi.
How does that make you feel?
Kwesi, you know, reward for hard work, there's nothing like that. You know, the three talents, the story of the three talents. The one who went to bury what he got and brought exactly what he was given, he wasn't rewarded. It was the one who went to risk it all, who profited and brought it. He was the one that was rewarded. Now look at the excitement of this kid. He felt so happy, so proud. And for him to have been acknowledged first and foremost, the acknowledgement.
By a shop owner in the community.
Exactly. Not his parents. And secondly, the reward. And I think that is something that is very much missing in our society, where we don't acknowledge the best. We don't acknowledge what is good. We are always looking for the ways that somebody went wrong and always holding to that insignificant once in a lifetime trip. And the good book says, ye that is without sin, let him cast the first stone. This is an example of how societies should nurture, grow, and propel their youth to become great people.
And to finish it all, 3 nuggets of wisdom to leave with the young that they may live their lives by. Let's go.
Because I'll start first with a Latin proverb. It says, quid agas, prudenti agas, e respeci finem. Quid agas, prudenti agas, e respeci finem. Meaning, whatever you choose to do in life, whatever and wherever life takes you, always do it with prudence, but above all, look to the end before you start.
Number 2.
Number 2, humility. Humility is royalty without a crown. Never forget your roots. Never forget that it is only through privilege that you find yourself where you are, because wherever you find yourself today, remember that it was only by his grace or through somebody.
Number 3,
knowledge and hard work. There is no alternative.
Thank you very much, Nana Fredua Agyeman Pambuo.
That's it. And God bless you. And
They say it's lonely at the top. Don't believe them, because if you're kind-hearted, if you're respectful and you're grateful, you will always be in good company. See you at the top. The bottom is too crowded. My name is Dakwa, Kwesi Che Dakwa. God bless you. Will the stylish and the classy get together to enjoy Master of the Game? Master of the Game brings you distinguished personalities, leaders, achievers, captains of industry, innovators, masterful storytellers, creatives, and entertainers, all hosted by a Master of the Game.
His Royal Blackness, KKD, the finest.
Catch Master of the Game on CTV. Oh yes, nuggets of inspiration and delightful treats for your enjoyment. Whether you love power, money, beauty, or fame, there is so much to learn from Master of the Game. Only in the place to be. The coolest channel, CTV.
Excellent furnishing in a real estate business is a great deal for survival. My struggles as a young estate developer were cut short when I discovered Fenart Ghana. With quality furniture made from the finest woods and amazing after-sale service, Fenart Ghana changed my story with every single home I built. It's a one-stop shop that serves the interests of clients with a variety of living room and dining sets, solid wood kitchen installations, wardrobes, doors, cabinets, beds, pergolas, floor parquets, and many other wooden products that will last a lifetime. With Fenart Ghana, all clients are offered the opportunity to customize furniture to their specifications.